go. So the topic for today's video is I don't want to work, or the expression I don't want to work, because it's a common sentiment nowadays. There are so many people who express this on a regular basis. I feel like the idea that, working, I think it's rooted in the idea that like working for the man is a bad thing. Like, you don't want to support big corporations and things like that, which, is totally understandable, because right now we live in a time period where businesses, not all of them, but a lot of them, do not value labor, or they value it insofar as to how much profit it generates. And that's it. There is a sort of camaraderie that's missing that it seemed evident in prior American generations, but now it's, I don't know, we've sort of lost that spirit. We show up out of necessity, not out of a desire to contribute to our community. That happens at all levels too. That's not just working class, but the aristocracy is not interested in really giving back to their community. I mean, some people are, some members are, but I feel like a lot of it has to do with tax optimization versus genuinely trying to make their community a better place. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that we have become so personally isolated, right? My community, it's in my living room, man. Or at most, it's my neighborhood. But I feel like there's a lot of neighbors nowadays that just don't know each other because they don't need to. You can spend all the time you need at home doing things by yourself on your own. You have all the amenities, all the entertainment that you could possibly desire. So having to be a part of something larger than that is, by all intents and purposes, obsolete. It's not necessary. Well, the truth is, it is necessary, but it's not obvious yet. Unless you're someone who enjoys looking into the research of interpersonal relationships and how they positively affect your psyche and things like that. It's not immediately obvious why getting out and not spending so much time with technology is actually a good thing, which I'm starting to already diverge from the point, which is I don't want to work. And so the problem with this is that I personally think most people do want to work. They just don't realize it, or they think that in order to be working in the most ideal circumstance, it requires them to find a job that they love 100% at all times. And maybe there are some outlier examples where that's the case, but I think for the most part, people are not going to find something that perfectly suits all of their needs. There will be moments of discomfort. There will be tasks that they simply don't enjoy but have to be done anyway, and you can still find fulfillment in that regardless. You don't have to, we've been sort of poisoned with this quote where if you find something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Well, I mean, I've been doing what I love for the past 3-ish, 4-ish years, and it still feels like work. There are still points where I don't necessarily want to sit down and edit a video for 4, 6, 8 hours. Like, I don't find that particularly enjoyable. I love recording. I love interacting with people in a live broadcast setting, but I don't enjoy sitting down and looking through every single clip and cutting it together and things like that. And to use a different example, I've been teaching for the past 6 years. And when I first started, I was looking for the first exit. I was trying to quit so fast because I didn't think I was qualified, and I didn't think it was something that I would enjoy doing. I thought that kids would drive me crazy. And here I am, 6.5 years later, I'm still doing the same thing. That sounded kind of bad. It's almost like I'm stuck doing it. That's not the point. I thoroughly enjoy teaching now, which is a complete 180 to how I felt when I first started. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that I decided to suck it up and find the aspects of it that I really enjoyed. Because at the end of the day, I think anything you do in life is kind of similar. I've talked about this in prior videos too, where you might play a sport or you might do some form of artistry, and a lot of the conventions that you need to learn or the way that in which you learn techniques is very similar. So you don't have to reconceptualize things from scratch. That's why people who are very experienced in one sort of avenue of life, I feel, tend to have a bit of an advantage when it comes to switching to something else. You might be a fantastic football coach, and as long as you begin to understand the fundamentals of baseball, I think the experience that you had in that prior field will have, it'll give you an advantage depending on the sort of interactions you've had with your players and the challenges that you've had to deal with and overcome. It widens your perspective. So before I get off into the weeds there, the point I'm trying to hit home with this talk, this video, is that a lot of the things that we think are causing suffering in our life, be it work or lack of purpose or bad relationships, I think it may have less to do with trying to find like everyone's looking for the one, the perfect partner, or the job that satisfies every checkbox of what they believe to be a worthy undertaking or worthy goal. And what was the third thing I said? I'll just go with isolation because that's the first thing that came to mind. The reason people are feeling isolated is because they think that the things that they have in front of them are suitable enough to make up for the lack of human relationships. And so my opinion, my perspective that I think is worthy of consideration, of adoption, is that you actually have everything you need in front of you. If you currently have a job of any kind, or if you have family, friends, a loved one, a significant other that maybe things are a little rocky with, I think that it is worth a shot of trying to turn those things you currently have into the best versions of what you think they should be. And I don't mean like going out and trying to change people. I mean reshaping your perspective. So let's say you have a spouse, a sibling, an extended family member, someone who just drives you crazy. Well, why are they driving you crazy, really? I mean, they could very well be toxic. And that if someone is toxic, the best way to really adjust that behavior, in my opinion, in my experience, is to portray the type of person that you want to be. Don't tell anyone to do anything. Simply express maybe how you feel, what you like, as opposed to pointing fingers and things like that. And then do the things that you think are admirable to do. That's one thing. Another is when it comes to the workplace, if you feel like, oh my God, this job is so boring, find the game aspect. What is the challenge of the job? What are you actually supposed to do? Seriously, like forget the money for a second. Forget what you're getting paid to be there for. What are you supposed to accomplish? Like at the end of the day, why was your butt being in that chair beneficial to the bigger picture? All right. And yeah, I know people are already saying, well, why do I owe this mega corporation who's barely paying me any sort of effort? You don't owe them anything. They're giving you a unique opportunity that they're not even aware of. All right. And I'm trying to make you aware of right now. You are surrounded, depending on your work situation, you're surrounded by other human beings who have their own problems, their own issues, and you have an opportunity to fine-tune your leadership skills. That doesn't mean going and trying to take charge and steamroll other people. No, it just means do your job, as simple or as complex as it may be, to the best of your ability, with the mindset that you're going to walk out of that office or that warehouse, the field, the court, whatever, with a better mentality. Like you've grown from that experience. That's all I want you to do. Because even if you're getting paid pennies, you're actually taking something away far more valuable. The people who are in positions that they already enjoy and love are not even aware of this experience that you can potentially create for yourself. Because if you get used to the idea of doing things that you don't like, there's a part of your brain, it's called the anterior cingulate cortex. I was really fascinated when I found this out. There is a part of your brain that gets bigger when you do things you don't like, okay? The anterior cingulate cortex, I'm gonna try not to say that word too much, it's really long, is responsible for willpower and your desire to live. I mean, that's a big deal. That's huge. And so if the training for increasing the mass of this part of your brain is by doing things you find uncomfortable, unpleasant, if you can get comfortable with the idea of doing things that you normally don't like doing, oh my God, like how many steps ahead of most people will you be? If the other people in your workplace see you showing up, doing your job, asking the questions that need to be asked so that you can do it to the best of your ability, and you're a pleasant person to be around, you'd be surprised what that leads to. People have a kind of narrow mindset that, oh, well, the upward mobility I have within a given industry or company is predicated on my performance in this goal or this job. Well, I would say that's probably baseline, but there's other things too. It's like, how cool are you to hang out with, right? If you're a likable person, people want you to succeed. Honestly, if you show up, you're humble, and you want to do a good job, how can you hate on that? Well, actually, I can tell you one way people can hate on it. Jealousy is one way people can hate on it. People who like to make excuses and feel that they don't need to work that hard or they shouldn't have to work that hard will see you doing your thing and be like, why the hell is he trying so hard? What a loser, you know? But then that comes another challenge, which is security, insecurity. And will you let other people's opinions of you dictate the way you perceive your work? Because it is a very common sentiment, like I said, to think, I don't want to do my job. I don't want to work. And as I mentioned at the beginning, reasonably so. It comes down to poor leadership. And, you know, leadership in the workplace is really important for a community of workers, a group of workers to do a great job. And there's some other issues that I haven't covered yet I want to talk about, you know, especially being in a toxic workplace. You know, short answer is get out, but I'll get to that in a second. But you have an opportunity, which is amazing, and that is if the leadership where you're at is inadequate, if it's poor, which for most of you watching is probably the case. I know I've been in those workplaces before. You know, step up and be that person. Not literally, just have that energy. Be the person who is, one, on top of their job, but two, on top of their life outside of that. Like, you know, are you going to bed on time? Are you eating healthy? Are you making your feeling of, you know, everything sucks worse by like consuming exorbitant amounts of alcohol, you know, like sedating yourself constantly? That, you know, no wonder you feel terrible all the time, because the basic foundations of what is required to be in a good mood are not being met on a regular basis. And I'm not saying that in a judgmental way. I'm telling you because very few other people are going to tell you the things that are just hiding in plain sight, right? You hear this all the time. Get your sleep, eat properly. Well, yeah, obviously. You hear it so much, it gets obnoxious after a while to have to listen to it. But here's your reminder, I'm gonna be obnoxious because it really makes a big difference. And if you try it for a month, 2 months, a year, and it still hasn't helped you, then yeah, maybe it requires some other alternatives. But I would say back to square one, back to basics first before we jump on the medication train. Or, you know, no, I'm not gonna say medication because I'm not a doctor, I'm not here to diagnose. But you get what I'm saying. Start with the basic fundamentals and then you can move on from there. You can use those things to augment the issues you might have, the experiences you could be dealing with. And, you know, I hope that helps. But back to the other point, as far as the workplace goes. there are some instances where, I mean, let's say you did everything I mentioned and it's an awful environment. I know people personally who their entire health and their personality has been adversely affected by the boss they have, their coworkers, the rudeness that they have to experience on a daily basis where you dread the very thought of going into the office. And what I say in that situation is find something else as quickly as possible. And if you can't find something else right away, get the hell out of there if you can. And I know some people, this is not very easy because you have a family you need to support and you might need the money at this very moment. You're a little bit desperate for work. To which I'll say, you either stick it out or you bury your ego for a second, you find someone you trust who can really help you, and you rely on them for the shortest amount of time possible until you can get your feet under yourself, right? Because I think the number one priority is to make sure that you are not in an environment that is causing you so much stress that your medical bills are increasing. That's just insane to me, right? Could you imagine giving all of your time to a company and them being the cause for your eventual demise? Because stress-related medical conditions, it's a real problem. I have family members who deal with this. I know friends who deal with it. And I'm grateful that I'm in a position right now because of the help of my mom. She takes good care of me and helps me as I try to figure out my own goals in life. Didn't know where that sentence was going. I know people who struggle with this. I was just saying I'm grateful that I don't have to struggle with it. Just whatever you can do, get out of there, but don't default to that idea that, oh, I'm in a toxic workplace. Because I've had people tell me, oh yeah, it's rough out here. Like I have to deal with this person or that person. It's like, well, is it you having to deal with them or is it them having to deal with you? The surefire sign is when you have someone who works at one job and then another job and another job and they're complaining about the same thing every time. Like, well, the odds of all those people being the culprit, I don't know, you got me questioning. If it's a few people at the same job, then yeah, then maybe it's time to look for something else. But all of this stuff, it goes without saying, I think it requires some serious introspection, You don't actually not want to work. You just need something that is fulfilling, or you need to conceptualize it in a way that is fulfilling for you. So that's what I got for this week. I hope you guys have a good one, and should be a lot of these coming soon because I just booked myself up for a bunch of work. So see you then.